How's it going, everyone? The Trout91 here with a very special video today. I'm going to be talking about the FIFA 13 gameplay information. What you're going to be seeing on the screen, unfortunately, is not FIFA 13 gameplay, but it is just some random goals I've got recently that I've had on my computer, or FIFA 12. None of them particularly over-the-top special. Some of them very average, some of them alright goals, but I just thought it would be a nice backdrop for what I'm about to speak about. So, a few weeks ago I went to a special event, a FIFA 13 first look, and they just discussed the gameplay information and how the game is going to play out in the new FIFA upcoming. And it was a very good special event. I'm glad I went to it, and I feel honoured to have gone to it. And I've been on embargo since then, until today, in fact, that I couldn't actually speak about it. And there was actually a webcast the other day that we all got invited to. They pretty much just discussed the same things, but more questions were asked. Because more people were in it, they could ask more questions, and some of the information was pretty handy in that retrospect. So what I'm going to do is kind of talk over what they discussed with me at the event and all the gameplay information. Unfortunately, you're not going to hear anything too specific about game modes. It was strictly about the gameplay, so I apologize if that was the kind of thing you were looking for, but hopefully in the near future we'll hear more about that. So they started off by saying that what they want in the next FIFA is a true battle for possession, and they've done this with a nice first touch control. They're reducing the perfect touch. You know, if you ping the ball over, a lot of you, I'm sure, play Ultimate Team and have played with the starting bronze players who are really, really poor. Even though they're really poorly rated, so like these 50 rated defenders can just be facing away, facing their back against the ball and just take the perfect touch and control the ball. And what they're trying to do is make it more realistic so that these bad players are not so good at doing that, and it's more based around the skill of the player that can take it. So they take into effect the speed of the ball, the skill of the player, how good they are, and all that will factor into how well they can take a touch on the ball. And they've also implemented, so basically what I'm just going to discuss is the main features, and then I'm going to go into more detail about it. What they're also implementing is more attacking intelligence. They're making tactical defending a lot less vital, because even though tactical defending, it made it a lot more challenging, and it gave you a lot more time on the ball. It gave you too much time on the ball, if that makes sense. So basically, you had loads of room to do anything you wanted, but you couldn't quite get through the defense because your players wouldn't quite make the runs you wanted, and players would just stand there. So it kind of meant you had to either try to wait and break them down, or you just had to lever an effort from outside the box. But what they're trying to do is update the intelligence of the attackers so they can go forward and realize that these runs need to be made and help you to score more goals. They're adding a complete dribbling 360 motion into the dribbling aspect with speed as well. So they're trying to make dribbling a lot more viable option, make it a little bit more realistic, because the characters, their models are only so limited by their movement, and what they're trying to do is increase the movement range of the bodies and the models so they can do more with their dribbling. And they're trying to update tactical free kicks so they can give you more options to customize your free kicks the way you want, and they're giving you more defending options as well on those free kicks, as well as the attacking purposes. So they're trying to overall capture the unpredictability of the real world and real football, which is really nice. Obviously, you got to keep your balance between realism and computer games, but it seems like some of these changes are going to be very good, and a lot of us, I know, have had problems with this stuff before, and it can get quite aggravating. So we're going to go on and talk about the player impact engine. Obviously, you know, they added it for the first time last year, and it had a mixed review. Some people liked it, some people didn't. It had its problems, obviously, which they admitted they did. And what it was the adjustments for the player's strengths. There was a lot of strength more in the hip areas of the player, which is why you saw these bodies collide off of each other, and it wasn't a full spread out of strength. So you'd see players fly off each other across the pitch, and weird bumps and challenges and clashes that just weren't supposed to happen. Glitches were made evident. If any of you have seen that FIFA video where Andy Carroll and I can't remember who else it is start kissing because they can't actually get up and they're all tangled, they're trying to get that so that they're adding more standing up options. So what they tried to do before was make it so that they would slowly and progressively get up, so they weren't getting in people's way and stuff like that. They've added it so the players will like roll away, or they've given them more options to try and get back up onto their feet and back into the game. And you saw a lot of situations in the last game where arms and legs would become, it looked like they had dislocated limbs because of the lack of range in the joints and the strength. So instead of an arm, so if you got pushed in the shoulder, your body would naturally turn with it. Whereas in the game, they didn't quite have that range of motion. The strength proportion, as I talked about earlier, didn't quite work in that retrospect. So it meant that these arms would just stay in position. The body would stay in position, but the arms would get twisted and all that stuff. So they're trying to update that so you don't get these random glitches and clashing of players and them flying across the screen from each other. And obviously they're updating the rollaways so that they won't get tangled, because obviously some of you have seen these players just end up piled on each other and they can't get quite up and they keep falling over. So they're trying to reduce that nonsense. They're actually also introducing this push and pull feature where the defenders can push and pull the dribbler, so they can like use their body to get in front and kind of pull the defender back, or they can push them out of the way of the ball. What they're trying to do is really make the strength game a lot more of a viable option, instead of these smaller players being able to outmuscle these huge burly players on the ball. Obviously, it can create fouls if you do it wrong and you're not in a situation to do it properly, but what they want to do is really create the realism of the game a lot more, and introduce the strength factor a lot more, which really does help a lot. And you can off-put the dribbler, you can shrug off the defenders a lot easier, and the pace factor not so much a big deal when it comes, if you're a stronger player, you're going to hold them off probably a lot more. Yeah, size and strength a lot more realistic. You use the body to get in front of the player, and the referee's intelligence has been updated so that instead of these random fouls where you don't really do anything to the player, I don't know, you give them a little nudge and the defender doesn't really react to it, but the referee for some reason gives a free kick or a penalty, and they're trying to update it so the referee's intelligence is a lot better, because in the last game some of the decisions based on the impact engine were a little bit dodgy at times, so they're trying to update that. And they're really putting a large emphasis on off-the-ball battles by using the players' bodies, as I said before. So instead of fouling the player who's not the ball past you, the defender uses the body to shield it and win the ball back, or shield it out of off the pitch, which is really, really crucial, because you got times where you've got the ball under control, you want to shield it out like you would in real life, but unfortunately you can't do that, and the defender just comes by you, nicks the ball off you, and you've given away a goal. So that's a really nice feature that they're doing in there. But they don't want to update it, make the attacking better than the defending. Obviously they are improving the defending, and it was a question asked in the webcast whether the attacking intelligence would be too overpowered or not, but they said they're going to be updating the defensive intelligence as well, so it's all balanced, but it's not something they quite fine-tuned. It's baby steps so far. You know, it's only May. They've still got a good few months before the game releases, so they're trying to get the gameplay right, but this is what they have so far. As we move on, the first touch control, trying to make the realistic touch. Not much really needs to talk about this. You know, the defensive pressure on the guy, the trajectory of the pass, the height, the skill of the player really does eliminate the near perfect touch. They're trying to make it so all these factors weigh into how well their touch will be. We saw a lot of examples, real life and on the game footage, where the ball would bobble and the defender would take a touch and it might bounce off their leg, or they might actually do a really nice touch, or they might need to take an extra few touches instead of just one touch where they get it down under perfect control and play the ball out. So it's going to be an interesting concept. So who knows how over the top balls will pan out in the new game. They might be a lot more lethal than they are now. It's going to be a question of waiting and seeing, I suppose. So it's a risk and reward for passes, whether people are under pressure. So if you give the ball to someone who's really under pressure, it could be the best decision of your life, or it could be an absolutely terrible, terrible mistake. The attacking intelligence, they're trying to improve the coding so that they know when to recognize space. So in the last game, what it was, they would recognize space, they'd run to it, and then they'd recognize more space, and they'd run to that position, rather than really waiting to know that the ball's going to come to them. They kind of like move around and not really go anywhere. They kind of just circle and circle, whereas now they're trying to give them more reason to go into a space and stick to that space and give them a lot more options. And they've actually improved the runs of the players. You know, you'll have these opportunities where you play a through ball, perfect through ball to an unmarked man, and they're standing offside, which is really frustrating because they're completely unmarked and they're through on goal. I know I've had plenty of those decisions, and I'm wondering why the hell are they not staying onside. But now they've updated it so they can make zigzag runs, so they can curve the run like you would in real life. The problem with the previous game, they couldn't do that, was the models. I said before, the range of motion in the models, they couldn't quite pull off the curving runs so well. So now they've updated it. They've also given them the stutter runs, and this is where I was talking about earlier with the possible overpowered attacking intelligence. But they've obviously updated it so only certain players are able to do it as well as others, and the defense will probably recognize these runs a lot better. We'll have to wait and see. So it does improve the flow of the game, so you can get a lot more attacking options on the go, especially if you're someone who's a little bit newer to game and you don't get so many opportunities. It does give you a chance to get a nice chance at goal. So as I said, curve runs implemented. The animation to support the intelligence wasn't in FIFA 12, but it is in the new one. Pretty much all that I have to say about that. So we'll move on to the complete dribbling. So in the last game, if you wanted to turn, your guy, the whole body had to turn, which the real magic about this FIFA 13 seems to be that the models have been updated, so they've got a lot more range of motion than the last games, and that's what the complete dribbling is all about. You can dribble with touches in a 360 directional mobility. So the example they showed us was, I think it was Nasri. He'd be facing one direction, but he'd be moving in the ball in a different. So he'd be facing horizontal. He'd be facing the goal, so say you're just facing the goal, but he'd be moving sideways. He's moving like right to left of the goal so that he can still maintain a front view and get a shot off if he wanted, but you can also move the ball with him sideways. And that's a really good feature, because instead of having to completely change your player's direction and interrupt the flow, and it really does make dribbling a lot harder in that aspect, and you can get tackled very easy, but they've updated it so you can do that. They've also added a little bit more flair into the dribbling, so your guy will make a lot more little touches, be a lot more effective at doing little touches and turns rather than you having to pull off a skill move or a really heavy turn, such as, like, I don't know, the McGeady spin or the Berber spin, something like that, to really help you out, or the heel chop. So it's a really nice feature that they've put in, so you don't have to rely on those so heavily, especially if you're not someone who's up to speed with doing those kind of turns and stuff. So the precision dribbling, as I said earlier, it's kind of what they said was they've kind of taken a leaf out of the FIFA Street book, but at the same time they don't want to be too overpowered, because if you remember the dribbling in FIFA Street, it was really, really elastic. It was very hard to tackle, which is the point of FIFA Street. It's all about those little touches. They've kind of it's kind of like a 50-50. They've taken like maybe 50% of what you saw in FIFA Street into this, so that you're a little bit more mobile with your dribbling, if you're not someone who likes skills, to be able to take on players and bring a whole new depth of attacking prowess to your game. So basically, easier creative dribbling is what they're on about. And then the tactical free kicks, what they've done to this is you can position up to 3 people on the ball, so you can have 2 people dummy it and then someone shoot, or you can just lay it off and have someone hit it, which you saw little bits of in FIFA 12, but they've also created more creativity, so you can do dummy runs, you can have people make off the ball runs, much more passing options. You can even get more creativity in the defense. So if you're someone who's not so great at defending free kicks, or you give away a lot of free kicks and you find that you concede a lot of free kicks like I do, you can actually do things like jump the wall with the defenders. You can tell them to jump at like multiple times, not just once, even before the kick is taken. You can reform the wall. So if someone gets out of the wall, you can then bring them back in, because most of the time what they've also added into this is people can run at the ball, so you can have them run. Let's say they take a dummy and you want them to get back in the wall, they can reform that wall and then run it again once they're taking it. You can creep the wall forward, which is something really interesting. So if you creep the wall too far, the referee will actually penalise you. And one question that was asked in the webcast was who gets the booking, and what they replied was that they want someone who's not been booked to get the booking. So if someone was in the wall who's actually been booked, they'll try and book someone who's not been booked before. So if you've got a wall full of people who've already been booked, you're taking a huge risk with that creeping into the wall. But you can be penalized for it if you do it too much. But it's a new feature, an interesting feature that will be in it. And you can increase the number of the wall. They actually told us you could put up to... the example they showed us was something like 7 or 8 people in the wall, which is pretty crazy, and they encouraged that we didn't do that. But if you really wanted to do that, you could do that, which I'm a bit skeptical about. But hey, let's see how it works out. It could mean that if you've got the whole team in the wall, you just give a simple pass to someone who's completely unmarked and you've got a goal. So that you've got to think about it from both perspectives. So basically it wants you to find a new way and a new and creative way of making use of your free kicks. And then they they just broke it down to the fundamentals for FIFA 13. They want better refs, better CPU intelligence, lateral movement in the players, new passing types. That's something I forgot to say, that they're adding new passing types so you can... If you've ever been in a situation where you've got an easy pass on, someone's completely unmarked, but you've got a defender coming to close you down, you'll pass it, you think you've got it, but they just stick a leg out. What they're doing is they're adding these little chipped passes, so all you have to do is pass it as you normally would, but they will have the intelligence to chip the ball a little bit, so it will go over their leg. Obviously, it's going to depend on who the player is, the intelligence, and the situation, as I've said before in many features. But it's something that's certainly going to be of interest and make the game a little bit more dynamic and give you a lot more options instead of this ping-pong passing. And if you're someone who's not so good at passing the ball, it will certainly give you a lot more options and let you get on the attack a lot more often. They've added newer animations, off-balance shots, so when your player's off-balance, they're trying to update it so that they can pick out as best a shot as possible. Obviously, it's not going to work out all the time. Trying to introduce more 180 shots, because it is possible, but obviously it's got to be tamed enough that it can work if it's a good situation, but obviously not so overpowered so that you're just pressing B and it's an instant goal, obviously. Adding newer celebrations. I got an interview with some of the people working there. They're adding new skills, new playlists, new game types, all sorts of new stuff they're adding into the new game. I'm really interested in how these new skills are going to be and what they're going to be. New goal line clearance behaviors and shielding the ball out of play. Lots of new little things that might not seem like a big deal because a lot of people are just interested in the game modes, but they will make a huge proportion of the game once you're done being interested in what's new in the game modes. So it's a little video, well, it's quite a long video, but there's a fair bit of information. I tried to whittle through it as quickly as possible, but it's very vital information, so it's good that if you don't like reading, that I made this and you can listen to my voice over some nice little gameplay. But anyway, that's the video. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I couldn't get any gameplay, that they don't want us to have any of the gameplay, but I've been invited by EA to go to LA for E3 and play the game firsthand, so that should be really good, and I hope to report back on that for you guys and tell you just how the game feels. That's all I pretty much have to say. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you really enjoyed it, leave a favorite, leave a comment on what you think about the new game as well. That does help out, and we can all have a nice discussion about it. Leave some ideas if you have any. And if you feel that anyone else would benefit from this information, feel free to share it on your Facebook, on your Twitter, wherever you want to share it. And I will speak to you all later. I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace out.